Hard times don't send a warning. They don't ask if you're ready. They just arrive uninvited, and they test everything you believe about yourself, because optimism isn't tested when life is easy. It's tested when plans fall apart, when doors close, when effort doesn't equal results, when you're doing everything right and life still says no. So the real question isn't, why is this happening to me? The real question is, who do I choose to become while it's happening? I don't stay optimistic because I'm blind to reality. I stay optimistic because I refuse to let hardship decide my identity. Because when things are hardest, that's when mindset matters most. That's when belief becomes a decision, and that decision changes everything. Today, I want to show you how optimism isn't hope without action. It's a strategy for survival, clarity, and forward movement. When quitting feels reasonable and continuing feels impossible. Hard times don't break us. They strip away the noise and show us who we really are when comfort disappears. When everything is stable, it's easy to perform strength, confidence, and control. But pressure removes the mask. It exposes what a man truly believes about his worth, his responsibility, and his place in the world. In difficulty, excuses collapse, and what remains is character. Men are often taught to measure themselves by results, by providing, by being useful. When hard times hit, loss of work, failure, rejection, it doesn't just threaten survival, it threatens identity. A man doesn't only ask, how do I fix this? He asks, what does this say about me? Optimism, in those moments, becomes an act of self-respect, not denial. From a woman's perspective, hardship reveals something equally important. It shows whether a man retreats into silence or leans into responsibility, whether he allows struggle to turn into bitterness or into growth. Strength isn't the absence of pain, it's the willingness to face it without losing direction. Hard times reveal who leads themselves before they try to lead others. They show who can hold hope without pretending, who can stand steady without having all the answers, and who understands that resilience is built when belief outlasts circumstances. Optimism is a choice, not a mood, because life doesn't wait for us to feel ready. When hardship arrives, our emotions are loud and our instincts are to react, anger, fear, or numbness. But optimism isn't the absence of those feelings, it is the decision to act despite them. A man can feel overwhelmed and still choose a mindset that moves him forward. That choice is the difference between a person who survives and one who grows. Men are wired to seek control, to solve problems, and to be the anchor in storms. When circumstances shake that sense of control, it feels like identity is slipping away. That's why optimism is often misunderstood as pretending everything is fine. It is not. Optimism is the deliberate act of saying, I can still influence what happens next. It is not a mood that appears spontaneously. It is a discipline that is practiced from a woman's perspective. This choice becomes visible in relationships. She notices when a man responds to stress with clarity instead of chaos, with presence instead of withdrawal. Optimism becomes trust in action. Proof that he can face difficulty without becoming distant or bitter. It's the difference between a man who spirals and a man who stands. It's the decision to lead with hope. Even when hope feels heavy, meaning matters more than motivation, because motivation is temporary and hards. HIP is persistent. Motivation rises and falls like the weather. One day you feel unstoppable, the next day you feel drained. But meaning is a constant compass. When a man is facing hard times, motivation alone cannot carry him through. What carries him is the deeper reason behind his actions, the why that makes struggle feel worth it, even when the outcome is uncertain. Men often tie their self-worth to performance, to results, to being seen as capable. When circumstances make those things harder, motivation fades quickly because the reward feels distant. Meaning, however, is not dependent on immediate success. It is rooted in identity, purpose, and responsibility. A man who understands his purpose can wake up on the worst days and still move forward because he is not chasing a feeling, he is honoring a commitment. From a woman's perspective, meaning is what creates emotional safety. She can sense when a man is driven by temporary ambition versus when he is guided by purpose. Meaning apes the way he communicates, the way he shows up, and the way he stays present even when life is difficult. It is the foundation that keeps a relationship stable during storms, because it is not built on excitement, but on shared values and lasting intention. Control the next step, not the whole journey, because the future is unpredictable, and trying to manage everything only creates anxiety. When hard times hit, men often feel the pressure to fix everything at once. They want a clear map, a perfect plan, and immediate results. But the truth is, the map is never complete. The moment you try to control the entire journey, you invite stress, fear, and paralysis. The only real control you have is over what you do next. Men are built to be problem solvers, and in crisis they want to be the solution. But the strongest men understand that progress is not a giant leap. It's a series of small, deliberate steps. When you focus on the next step, you regain agency. You stop waiting for motivation to return, and you start taking action. The next step might be simple, but it is powerful because it keeps momentum alive. Momentum is what turns struggle into growth. From a woman's perspective, this mindset shows up as stability. She sees when a man is overwhelmed by the big picture, and she feels the distance it creates. But when he commits to the next step, she experiences reassurance. She feels the presence of someone who is not lost in fear, but grounded in action. A man who controls his next step becomes someone others can trust, even when the road ahead is uncertain. Pain is temporary, purpose is not, because pain is a signal and purpose is a direction. Hard times bring pain in many forms: loss, rejection, failure, loneliness. A man experiences pain as a threat to his identity because he has been conditioned to believe that strength means never breaking. But pain is not a weakness, it is evidence that something in life matters. Pain tells you that you are alive, that you care, that you are trying. When a man understands that pain is temporary, he stops seeing it as a verdict and starts seeing it as a phase. Men often respond to pain by either numbing it or proving they are fine. They isolate, they work harder, or they bury the feeling under distractions. But purpose changes the relationship with pain. Purpose is the why that makes discomfort meaningful. When a man is connected to purpose, pain becomes part of the process, not the end of the story. It becomes the fuel that pushes him to grow, to learn, and to build resilience. Purpose gives pain a timeline, and that timeline creates hope. From a woman's perspective, this distinction matters deeply. She can feel the difference between a man who is simply enduring pain and a man who is transforming it. Purpose shows in his eyes, in his patience, in his ability to stay committed even when life is unfair. She doesn't need him to be flawless. She needs him to be steady. Purpose is the anchor that keeps him ground. The reason he continues to show up and the proof that he is not defined by his suffering but by his commitment to something greater. The future is built by those who don't give up today, because the most important moment in a man's life is not when he succeeds, it's when he refuses to quit. Hard times don't ask for permission. They don't care about your plans, your dreams, or your expectations. They arrive and demand something from you: endurance. A man can't control the speed of progress, but he can control whether he stays in the race. The future is not a gift, it is the result of consistent decisions made in the present, especially when the present feels unbearable. Men are wired to seek certainty and to protect their pride. When circumstances break their confidence, the instinct is to withdraw, to hide, to stop trying. But giving up is not a solution, it is surrender. And surrender doesn't just affect the moment, it reshapes identity. When a man quits, he tells himself a story. I'm not strong enough, I'm not capable, I don't deserve better. That story becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The opposite is also true. When a man keeps going, even when he doesn't feel like it, he rewrites his identity. He becomes the kind of man who can endure. He becomes the kind of man who can lead. From a woman's perspective, persistence is one of the most powerful forms of love and trust. She can sense when a man is tempted to give up, and she knows the cost of that choice. When a man stays, when he shows up again and again, it creates security. It creates a foundation for the relationship to grow. She doesn't need grand promises. She needs consistent effort. She needs to know that when life gets hard, he will not disappear. She needs to know that the future they want is worth the struggle today.